Rainbow Dash was staring at the ceiling. Her expression was blank, but her mind had been racing for the better part of an hour or two. She had a hoof behind her head, supporting her pillow as she tried to get into a more comfortable position. Her eyes gazed to the alarm clock on the bedside table. "Oh, for the love of," she groaned quietly. It was nearly 5 a.m. So much for getting to sleep that night. She felt a tickle on her left side and turned her head to see if the filly was awake. But no, Scootaloo was still fast asleep. Dash sighed, feeling her left arm gradually growing more and more numb, but she wouldn't risk moving it and waking the child up. She had held Scoot close to her when the little filly had come in a few hours previously, in great distress. Scootaloo has the same recurring nightmare. Almost once a week, Scootaloo's sleep time was disturbed by memories of the last night she had ever seen her mother. Scootaloo, who was 4 at the time, had gone into the Everfree forest with the mare who had brought her into this world, whom Scootaloo had loved so dearly. Scoot couldn't remember why they had gone in there, but her mother left her in a small cave and told her to stay put and wait for her return. Misty Skies. That was her name. Rainbow Dash's eyes narrowed and she bit her lip, trying to prevent herself from shaking with rage. She would never forgive that woman. She knew her well. The mare had been friends with Dash's mother. A lazy and worthless stallion had gotten Misty pregnant at a young age. Little Scootaloo had been the result of that one-time union. Rainbow Dash had met up with Misty Skies again well over a year ago now, but Scootaloo didn't know. Dash told not a soul. All Scootaloo knew was that her mother never returned to find her in the cave. Scootaloo was lost in the forest and had no way to fly above the trees to return home to Ponyville due to the fact that she was handicapped. Scootaloo's wings had never developed properly, so the young Pegasus could not fly. While most Pegasi foals experiment with flight as young as a couple months old, Scootaloo had gone her full 7 years of life, never tasting the thrill of it. Scootaloo believed her mother had died. Everyone did. Scootaloo never knew her father, who had left her mother before she was born. She had waited in that cave for 2 whole days, shaking and hungry, until a botanist picking herbs in the forest heard her cries and brought her to safety. She was taken to the Ponyville orphanage, where she lived until 2 months ago. There was a Pegasus that Scootaloo idolized, the great Rainbow Dash, the fastest pony in all of Equestria, friend of the famous Twilight Sparkle, who was the protege of Princess Celestia herself. Scoot had founded the official Rainbow Dash fan club amongst the kids at her school and a few other ponies in Ponyville. Rainbow Dash glanced down at the sleeping filly beside her. Rainbow Dash was the one who adopted Scootaloo. It was only after they had gone camping that Dash fully realized precisely how much Scoot adored her. Rainbow Dash had always pitied her, knowing she couldn't fly, knowing she was orphaned, knowing she had no one but her best friends, Apple Bloom and Sweetie Belle. So the month before last, Rainbow Dash had bought this house and brought Scootaloo home. She remembered fondly the look of supreme joy and the tears of happiness when the matron of the orphanage had led Scootaloo into the room to meet the mare who wanted to adopt her. Acting as both a big sister and mother, Dash cared for and fed her. Rainbow helped with her homework, tucked her into bed whenever the filly was upset, told her stories, played with her, and started wing training in the basement gym in the vain hope that one day Scootaloo could have sustained flight. Rainbow Dash was growing to love her. Her thoughts drifted back to Misty Skies, and her blood boiled. The mare was no more dead than Dash herself. Misty Skies lived in Manhattan. Dash had accompanied Rarity there for a fashion show. She probably wouldn't have bothered otherwise, but she yearned to see the big city, and the rest of her friends were too busy to go that weekend. After a successful show, the pair of them had gone to a nightclub in the evening to celebrate after a long day of sightseeing. Dash had been sitting at the bar, enjoying her drink, and throwing furtive glances at a stallion across the club who had been eyeing up and talking to her all evening. He was kinda cute, she had deliberated, and his behavior towards her suggested certain motives. But Rainbow Dash was only there for drinks and some dancing. It was Rarity, after all, who was flirting with the guys there. It was only when Dash had grown tired, deciding to drag Rarity back to the hotel, that she had seen her, in the corner of the club, drinking alone, but chatting it up with a stallion or two every few minutes. Long fuchsia hair in light, fluffy curls, and a dark gray coat of fur wrapped up in a dress of lavender silk. Misty skies. Dash had stood up on her hind legs quickly, and despite the alcohol intake, was quite steady as she marched over. She had to walk this way to keep her head above the crowd, keeping the pony in sight. Dash could remember everything from that night clearly. What song had been playing, what she had been drinking, the dress that Misty Skies was wearing, and the smell as a stallion stumbled his way towards the exit, who had appeared to be supporting a buddy on the verge of passing out. Misty Skies had looked up once Dash had reached the corner. "Misty?" Rainbow Dash could remember saying, sitting down at the same table with a feeling of great surprise and shock running through her. "Rainbow Dash, is that you?" The mare had responded with a gasp, her drink tumbling from her hooves and spilling across the table. "Oh no, oh no. We thought you were dead," Dash had stammered. "What in blazes are you doing here? What happened?" "Oh no, 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 look, I'm begging you, please, don't tell any pony. I left Ponyville because of my debt. I had no way out, so I ran for it. Please, don't tell a soul. If the authorities..." Dash had remembered Misty wailing, hiccuping. "I moved here and started fresh. I go by Dusk Feathers now." Misty Skies might have found the expression on Rainbow Dash's face unreadable as Dash continued. "You a fool? You could have gotten help. Do you have any idea what you've left behind?" I was too far in the hole. I panicked, but it's all worked out so far," Misty had explained, wiping off her dress as some of the spilled drink had splashed onto her without her notice. "Besides, I had nothing left for me in Ponyville. Life is better here." Rainbow Dash could remember the fury that had surged through her veins with such force that it physically hurt. "That's true, I suppose. You had nothing left for you back home," Dash had spoken calmly, standing up and leaning across the table. "Nothing at all." Dash could still feel it, the pain in her hoof, as it collided with the smirking, arrogant face of her old friend. The warmth of blood as Misty's nose broke. The chair Misty Skies was sitting on had fallen over. And Rainbow Dash remembered the drunken mare looking up at her, horrified and shocked, recoiling in fear. "Nothing at all," Dash remembered repeating, "except a practically crippled little Pegasus who you probably left to die in the woods." "Oh, you probably thought we'd all think she died, or disappeared, or whatever, along with you, huh? Probably thought no one would ever know you left her for the Timberwolves, didn't you? Don't be too disappointed that she survived. Enjoy your new life, you pathetic wretch." Rainbow Dash had kicked her hard in the stomach and turned away, immediately finding Rarity amongst the startled and silent crowd who were close enough to notice the assault. She had dragged the unicorn from the club before security could alert law enforcement, and they departed Manhattan early the following morning. Rarity had never once asked Rainbow precisely what happened. For that, Dash was grateful. These memories had been racing through Rainbow Dash's mind all night, keeping her up ever since Scoot had come in earlier, around 2 o'clock in the morning. Dash had been prodded awake by the tearful and shaking Scootaloo, who had asked to sleep in Dash's bed with her. It was the same nightmare. Dash had known it at once from that look on the filly's face. Dash had moved over and allowed Scootaloo to come aboard, cuddling the sniffling filly until the younger Pegasus had fallen asleep. 3 hours later, and Dash was still wide awake and still thinking about everything. Nobody knew who Dusk Feathers of Manhattan really was, but Rainbow Dash wouldn't tell anyone that Misty Skies was still alive. She didn't go to the police either. She wasn't worth it. Scootaloo was better off not knowing. The mother that she had cherished had selfishly abandoned her, had left her to either starve to death or become the Timberwolf's next meal. Perhaps, Dash had thought, she would be better off never knowing. But no. When she first adopted Scoot, Dash had decided that she would tell the child when Scoot was older. She deserved the truth. Scootaloo deserved someone who loved her. Rainbow briefly nuzzled her face against Scoot's head. The mother she deserves. Dash thought, a warmth spreading through her body. I'll never let anything happen to her. She's been through enough. Scootaloo slept on as Dash picked up the remote off the bedside table and clicked on the TV that sat in her wardrobe, turning down the volume quickly as to not wake the girl. Dash flicked through the channels as she remembered why Rainbow had wanted to adopt a filly or colt in the first place. Scootaloo certainly wasn't the only pony who had something wrong with their body. Dash had known for years that she was almost completely infertile. As such, it was unlikely that Rainbow Dash would ever be a mother herself, so she had pushed the idea from her mind as soon as possible as she continued to train hard to become the best flyer who ever lived. She hadn't really intended to adopt anyone until she was much older, and had finally gotten herself into the Wonderbolts, the world-famous aerobatic team. Dash looked over at the poster of Soarin on her wall. She smiled at the scribble near the bottom, put there by Soarin himself. To Rainbow, Sonic Rainboom Dashy, keep being an inspiration to Pegasi everywhere. Rainbow had drawn a little heart next to his signature. One day, perhaps. One day. No, she had decided that she would adopt earlier than she had originally intended. When Scootaloo confessed her deepest fears and told Rainbow that she wanted the older Pegasus to be something like a big sister to her, Rainbow Dash agreed. Not only that, but Dash had taken it further. Even though Dash was still barely into her adulthood at the age of 22, she had made the fateful trek to the orphanage to file the paperwork she needed. She had certainly known Scoot long enough by that point. Rainbow had saw her nearly every day, especially when she visited Rarity or Applejack. Both of them had a sister who were best friends with Scootaloo. The three fillies formed the Cutie Mark Crusaders, Ponyville's little band of troublemakers on a quest to find out who they are, by attempting everything under the sun to cause their cutie marks to appear. Rainbow Dash turned the television off. Nothing good on. What a surprise. Once again, she gazed intently at her new sister. Scootaloo was drooling all over the sheets. Scoot really was adorable, Dash noticed fondly. Rainbow's life had felt so much fuller ever since that day. She felt truly happy. Scootaloo seemed a lot happier too. Dash had told the filly that she could call Rainbow Dash Mommy if she wanted. Dash wasn't sure if she would prefer being called that or not, knowing that it might be impossible for her to ever hear those words otherwise. But the two Pegasi called each other sister anyway. Rainbow Dash rolled over and snuggled the filly close as the room gradually brightened. Their life together had been amazing thus far, but not everything had been enjoyable. Their Crusaders had nearly burned down their clubhouse a few weeks after Scoot was adopted, an event that could easily have cost either one of them their lives. Rainbow Dash had given Scootaloo her first ever spanking because of this, and not 3 weeks later, Scootaloo had received another after she'd started a fight at school that landed her in the principal's office. Dash's sisterly guidance was firm, but she always made Scootaloo understand that it was all out of love for her, and these corrections were necessary because Dash wanted her to do better. Dash had given up trying to sleep. Instead, she breathed deeply as she set her focus on the memories they shared together, the good and the bad. She was looking forward to the days, weeks, and months, and even years ahead where Scootaloo would get all the love and guidance her real mother never offered her. After losing herself in recollections and thoughts for a long while, she had rolled back over to the right and checked the alarm clock. 6:25 a.m. It was going to go off in 5 minutes. Realizing that it was pointless to wait, Dash reached over and disabled the alarm clock early, yanked her arm out from under a still snoozing Scoot, and sat up. Shaking the feeling back into the limb, she stretched and yawned. Today was going to be a long day. An important day, though Dash didn't know it yet. But any day felt exhausting when you were tired. "Wake up, kiddo," she said, giving Scoot a gentle prod. "Time to get up for school."